One of the most helpful gatekeeper tactics that we'll talk about here today is to treat the gatekeeper like the prospect. And you're not going to want to do this out of the gate. This is like your fallback position. So when you're calling it into an account, you're on the phone with the gatekeeper, they're starting to block you out. Either they're blocking you out because they sense you're a salesperson and they're not going to let you in or let anybody in, or they might be being difficult because they just don't know who you are and who to send you to, and they're just confused, and you're confusing them with what you're asking for. Maybe you don't have an exact contact name. So basically, the picture I'm trying to paint is you try to get in or try to get transferred, and you're facing some resistance. Well, what you can do is you can start to shift gears, because let's face it, if you were passed along and transferred through to the prospect, you might use some of your call script or some of your sales message, and you might do something like share your value proposition, ask some questions, talk about your product or whatever. You're going to go through some sort of routine when you talk to the prospect. Well, if you can't get through, you're being blocked out, you're facing some resistance, take a step back and start to treat the gatekeeper like the prospect that you're trying to reach. And let me show you. Don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like. So a first example here is you could share your value points. This really works well if the gatekeeper doesn't know who you should talk to or why you should talk to anyone. So you're starting to face some resistance, and it might look something like this. Actually, let me take a step back real quick and let you know who I am and why I'm calling. The reason for my call is that I work with CFOs and I help them to streamline their global reporting for their financial accounts. I don't know if you all want to improve that area, but that's why I'm reaching out. Do you know who the best person for me to talk to is? So what I did there is it's the value points building block, but I'm facing resistance and we're starting to butt heads, and here I am, I'm like pushing pause, taking a step back, and I'm educating the gatekeeper in the same way that I'd educate the prospect by sharing my value proposition. It not only tells the gatekeeper why you should be passed through because you're sharing your value and how you can help, it educates them on maybe who you should talk to. So another version of that is you could try to educate the prospect with your pain points. So again, you're facing resistance, and actually, let me take a step back real quick and let you know why I'm calling. The reason for my call is that I work with a lot of CFOs, and they often have challenges with finding a lot of errors in their reports, and it takes a lot of time to reconcile their different global accounts. Now, I don't know if you guys are concerned about those areas, but that's why I'm reaching out. Do you know who the best person to talk to is, or do you know if you guys are, if your CFO is concerned or not about those areas? Let me just point out, what you're trying to do here is you're not necessarily trying to get the gatekeeper to say, oh, we need that. Oh, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I'm so glad you called. We're waiting for someone for that. You're trying to educate them and trying to get them to drop their guard just a little bit. You're trying to sound more sophisticated, that you're not a pesky salesperson, and show that you have something valuable to offer versus just some product to push. Another version of this educate attempt is to use your name drop building block. So this might look like, actually, let me take a step back, let you know who I am and why I'm calling. The reason for the call is that we worked with XYZ Corp, and we helped them to streamline their global financial reporting, and this ultimately helped them to reduce the amount of time that it takes to run their reports and also improve the accountability for their individual business units. Now, I don't know if we can help you guys in the same way, and that's why I'm reaching out. Do you know who the best person for me to talk to is? And so again, hopefully there you might get pointed in the right direction. You might get some kind of dialogue going with the gatekeeper. We have a couple options here. We're continuing with treating the gatekeeper like the prospect, but another option is to start asking questions. So this works well when you have a difficult gatekeeper, and you might just kind of give up with trying to get to the prospect and just say, oh, okay, well, I tell you what, maybe you might know the answer to this. Do you guys currently have your reporting integrated with your ERP system? So right there, I'm just asking one of my pre-qualifying pain questions. Again, your goal here is not necessarily to get the gatekeeper to say, oh, we need that. But what you'll find here is you're probably going to get one or two different types of responses. Either the gatekeeper might answer your question, and that's good because if it's a really good question that you'd like to ask the prospect, well, heck, if you can get some information out of the gatekeeper, then that is not a call wasted. Maybe the gatekeeper might answer your question, which helps you to determine that the prospect needs what you sell, or maybe the gatekeeper answers your question and it could sound like a credible answer, and it helps you to identify that you don't really need to waste your time calling this prospect because they don't fit. If the gatekeeper tells you an answer where it helps you to identify that there's a fit, you can then follow that up with, oh, well, see, that's why I'm reaching out, because that's the type of thing that we help with, and we could probably have a really productive conversation with your CFO. Can you help point me in the right direction of who that is, or are you able to transfer me? I think that they would really find our conversation to be productive. So you basically use the information gathered to justify them passing you through if they are indeed being difficult. Now, certainly they may still just block you out, and you might, again, like I said, there's some gatekeepers where regardless of what you do, they're not going to let you in, and that's fine. But at least when you face some resistance, if you have this tool in your toolkit, then you have something that you try before getting completely shut down. Now, there is a chance that you ask your pain question here and the gatekeeper they don't know. And that could very likely be the case if you have a really great pain question to ask and it's the prospect that would know the answer to that. And so the gatekeeper might answer with something like, I'm not sure. I'm not the person that would know the answer to that. And then you could reply with something like, oh, well, you see, that's why I'm trying to get in touch with your CFO. They're the ones that really know the answer to that, and that's why I'm trying to reach out. Who is the best person for me to talk to about that? So again, you're treating the gatekeeper like a prospect, asking you a paying question. Depending on their answer, you have some sort of follow-up there to try to stay in the game and get around the gatekeeper. And another very related scenario to that is instead of asking your pain questions, you could ask some of your current environment questions. So the gatekeeper says, we already use someone for that, or we don't need that, or we're not interested. Oh, okay, yeah, hey, well, I tell you, maybe you might be able to answer this for me. Who are you guys currently using today for your reporting business intelligence platform? So what I did there is I'm being shut down by the gatekeeper, being blocked out, and I basically treat them like the prospect and respond with asking a current environment question. Same scenario there in terms of the answers. Depending on the answer, you have a few different options for how to respond and try to work your way around.